The question I have now is actually not about your work specifically, but I'm wondering if each of you could talk about a choreographer who inspires you and what it is about their work or their process that speaks to you. Laurence?
Yes. Robert. Actually, no, I've seen his work. He's very talented. Okay. But I haven't worked with him, so I won't comment on that. I think, obviously, because James Kudelka is now the resident choreographer of our small contemporary dance company, I've had the pleasure to work with him a lot, and I think not as a ballet form, but in his contemporary works, because he does a lot of contemporary that is really contemporary, not just pretend contemporary. It's actually, there's a difference for us coming from the contemporary side, that it's not contemporary ballet, it's actually contemporary dance. But he's a very special choreographer, he's very smart, and he's very quick. And what I like about his process is that, well, I have never been pushed so hard by any single individual in my life, and will never. Like, hands down, it's like almost impossible to satisfy him. But he believes in his dancers so much. Like, he can see in you something you don't even know you have. So I always surrender and go, well, if you think I can do this, I suppose I will try to do it. I think he's very different choreographer than me. Like, he always starts with a musical perspective, like the gentleman here. And that's a real kind of genius on his part. Like, he can actually work, see a piece of music, hear a piece of music, and choreograph something that's pretty incredible to that. He's also very quick. He has everything in his head. He never goes back. Like, he's totally linear. Like, and we've just done a few new pieces recently. And he goes from the beginning of the piece till the end. There's never any going back. There's never any improv. There's never, ever any changing steps.
Wow.
So he comes in. This is very strange. He comes in and goes, he basically dictates what he wants. He never will say, what do you think about this arm? Like, never. So you just have to keep up with him. And I like that because there's a real clarity, and you feel very much directed as a dancer. Right. And I think that also probably personally, because I feel that my own body or my own person as a dancer fits very, very well his work. So therefore, I feel on stage very free, although in the studio, not free at all. Like, incredibly directed. But there's something really satisfying about that, because then once you go through that grueling process, you can actually be an artist and express your really deep who you are, because you've gone through the whole physical sort of torture, if I can say, which is actually a great thing. So that's what I have to say about him.
Excellent, thank you. Next, someone?
I would be very predictable and say the two directors I got to work for in those two companies were both unbelievable masters at their craft. But for so totally, completely different reasons. Yuri Kilian, in his earlier work, really approached it from a musical standpoint as well. Every single plink and plunk in the music was demonstrated by some kind of movement physically. And he also, I learned so much from him about musicality in general. I mean, I always approached the dance from the music side anyway, because I was a singer before I ever became a dancer, and music was always first for me. But he's a trained classical piano player, and he will study his entire score before he gets into the studio. And he always, musicality was such a huge, huge thing for him that he said once in front of the whole company, I'll never forget, that 90% of dancers rush the music when they're dancing. 90% of that's a lot, that's a big percentage. Dance ahead of the beat slightly. And he said, I want you to be exactly on the beat. I want you to feel like you're making the music happen with the movements that you're making with your body. And to me, that just, I was like, oh yes, finally, you know, it made so much sense to me, and it was physically how I approached the movement anyway. And I used to always get those corrections. Sean, you're a bit late. You're a bit late. You're a bit late. And I was like, really, I feel like I'm on the music somehow. And I'm dancing in a group of 8 people, thinking that I'm actually right and they're all wrong, you know. So when he would say, your musicality is flawless, I was like, okay, that's something I can bring with me. And the other, I mean, William Forsythe's work for me, the range, first of all, between his more classical-ish material on point and, you know, the range all the way to the improv, to the speaking, I got to play a bugle on stage once. I played the harpsichord in a ballet one time. We had speaking roles. We did a musical in Frankfurt Ballet that was entirely original. It was so challenging on so many levels. You just didn't know from one day to the next what he was going to ask you to do. You had no idea whatsoever. And so it keeps you on your toes in that kind of way. And I spent 3 seasons in that company. I felt physically that I had gone through about 10 seasons because of the intensity of the work. And my body just couldn't really take it anymore, so I had to leave. But the experience for me and the how much I grew in that short amount of time just changed me for life. And people always comment on dancers that have gone through that Ballet Frankfurt experience that, oh, you're all kind of, you know, Billy disciples after that. And it's not really that we worship him or anything, but he had a real gift about knowing how to get through to each of his dancers as well. Like, he wouldn't talk to any 2 different people the same kind of way. He would sometimes, you know, spell it out for certain people, and for other people, he would, 5 minutes before the curtain went up, he would change your entire solo right before the performance, just to see you in that sort of vulnerable kind of state where you would produce an emotional quality that he was looking for. So I just thought it was kind of sheer genius on so many levels. It was so challenging as a dancer, as an artist, and I also felt when I was watching his work as part of the public, it was equally challenging and relevant. And so I have all good things to say about his process.
Robert?
Yeah.
Robert?
When I was still at the school, actually, we got the opportunity to dance a few of excerpts from Yuri Killian's earlier stuff, and I really fell in love with all the material that he gave the students to do, and started to sort of worship him, you know, on a pedestal like that, and you know, saw like DVDs of his stuff more from like the 90s and Petite Moore and all that, and I just loved how, like you were saying, how musically demonstrative it was, and how creative it was, and then how creatively musical it was, you know, and that's just sort of been my end all be all. But I also got to work with James Kidalka when I was a student, and then he actually hired me into the company and then left the company. So it's been really nice actually in the last year or two that James Kidalka has been coming back to the National Ballet of Canada to rehearse his work, that a lot of it is still in our repertoire. So most of our big productions are James's, and he's a really wonderful person to have in the studio, because like Laurence was saying, you feel so directed and you feel so challenged, and we finished running this Knight's dance in the Act 1 of Swan Lake, which is one of the hardest things I've ever done, and we finished and he said, "You all look like you don't think it's hard enough," you know, and he just wanted us to jump. You have to jump higher, and actually the opposite to what Yuri said. That James's recent thing is that when the music feels slow, don't get behind the music, which is because he tries to pack so much in to there's a step on every note, and the notes are coming like this, and you're like trying to keep up. So that's been really wonderful, and the person that I've really loved working with recently and admire is Crystal Pite, who came to set her ballet. She created a work called Emergence on us, and I fell in love with her from the first time I watched her dance with her company, and then getting to work with her, she I feel like has, out of anyone I've worked with, has struck that balance that I'm searching for, preparedness and spontaneity. She has such a clear vision that you can just jump on board with, but then she's also so, she really feels the room and is able to go that way, and and she can really break things down. We had trouble getting some intricate thing that she said, and she just analyzed her own improv and instinctively has, okay, you're going to lead from the top of the spine, pull back from the rib here. She just knows exactly everything she does, even if it's improv. So Crystal, that's my girl. Yeah.
Last year I had the opportunity through the school to work with the marketing staff and with Catherine to produce some performances of Azure Barton's company here in this theater. And her work is stunning, and I wouldn't say her work has influenced my work. It's more how she creates, and she trusts her instincts so wholly. And watching her lead workshops and create things, she thinks it and she does it, and she doesn't judge it. She just lets it happen, and then she changes it. And I found that a big turning point for me to think, I can do this, I'm good at this, so I should just trust myself for now and not think about what everyone's going to think about every step and what the dancers are thinking. She just trusts her own instincts so much that I think it's really incredible, and I really respect artists who fully trust themselves. I've been collaborating with a composer from the Juilliard School for the piece I'm composing in New York, and she's brilliant. And we set a structure, which she's kept to, and she'll send me various drafts, and I'll say, well, I liked this better before, and I'm not sure about this, and then she kind of goes, okay. And then 3 days later, I'm like, no, you were right, it's perfect. And she just trusts herself and waits for me to come around. And having that ability, I think, is incredible.